Good morning and welcome to TakeaSide. I'm your host, Jacob Polachek, and with the college football playoff all set and the NCAA season in full swing, we'll be running through some exciting topics. As always, be sure to follow along on sided.co and follow us on Twitter at TakeaSideKU. For our first debate, I'm here with Riley Ward and Emma House, here to debate who's the most surprising team in college basketball this season. Riley, what are your thoughts?
All right, well, I have to go with Michigan because personally I just think that they had a great tournament in the Bahamas. They jumped from unranked to number 4 after beating UNC and then Gonzaga in back-to-back games. I think that people didn't really see them coming because they got a new head coach this year in Juwan Howard. If you don't, you might remember him from the Fab Five team, all the freshmen. I forget when that was, but either way, they look really good. They spread their scoring out more than most teams do. I feel like they don't rely on just one guy. And John Teske is looking like arguably one of the best players in the country right now, where he's averaging 14 a game, 9 rebounds. He's averaging 1.5 steals and 2.5 blocks per game. So you don't see that very often from actually you do see that often from a big guy on Michigan. I feel like every single year they have this fraternity of centers who all do exactly what they're supposed to and lead them further. And this year was a question mark without their former head coach, but I think they're going to do great.
All right. I think that's a good – I feel like Michigan's always up there, They kind of lose their footing a little bit in the beginning, but they kind of – I don't know. I'm surprised they're this early, I think, this year. I'm going to go ahead and say Maryland for mine. We were talking about this earlier when we were prepping, but we didn't even know Maryland was ranked this year, and now they're, number 3 or something?
Yeah, that took me by surprise.
So, yeah, nobody really expected them, and I saw their game against Illinois. I saw the last couple of minutes, and okay, maybe I'm just biased because I'm from Kansas and we have really high-scoring games, but it didn't seem like they scored that high. They didn't even get 60 points.
Yeah, I think that strikes me as a classic. Well, I say classic Big Ten basketball, but then Michigan just beat Iowa. They scored 103 and Iowa scored 91. So I feel like lots of times about division, it's the ACC, those high-scoring teams, but in the Big Ten, they just grind it out. We keep it low, and then the refs don't call anything unless you bring a knife onto the court, and then from there, it's just hard mouth basketball. It's very old school style basketball.
It is really fun basketball to watch.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the last couple minutes of the game that I saw.
But it was close.
It was 1 point, so it was a really good game.
That's what I'm saying. Do you still think that Maryland's going to continue that even though they got a scare early in the season? Because that could help them.
That's a good point. I don't know if they'll keep it up. We've got a lot of teams. You've got Michigan, Virginia, UNC, Duke, they're all lower, and I think they're going to find their footing. They're going to go up, and they're going to shoot up in there. Kansas number 2, we got to say that.
Yeah.
But
and neither of us mentioned Louisville, who Michigan just lost to recently.
Yes.
And they looked good in the first half. Second half, Louisville just kind of ran away with it. So that made me a little nervous to just say Michigan for this, just because Louisville, another team that kind of came out of nowhere for me, where they lost Pitino years ago to all those violations. We don't need to get into that. But then anyways, they're back, and they look stronger than ever. And they spread the ball well. They play that kind of bully basketball that I think that will take them further. Because the ACC, we're used to those high-scoring teams, but when it comes down to it, you need a good defense.
That's true, yeah. So do you have any honorable mentions for this?
Any honorable mentions? Well, besides Kansas, obviously. I'm trying to think to myself, you can't deny Virginia. They did lose quite a few players, but they're still defending national championships, great coaching, and I think that if they can escape the ACC, well, they're going to escape the ACC, but if they can go far in the ACC tournament and first or second in that conference, because it's going to be really tough with Duke and Louisville in there.
Yeah,
but I can still see, I don't think Duke is as good as we all think they were.
That is a good point. I never want to say Duke is good, but I don't think they are as strong this year as they were last year, and I think that a lot of people are not getting that. And I feel like a lot of people have to get over that, because, there is a whole bunch of hype about Duke. Don't know why, but there is.
Well, it doesn't look like a good year for the Big 12. Kansas is our only top 10 team right now.
Yeah.
Versus we've got, the Big 10, they have Ohio State, Michigan, and Maryland.
They do have a really strong conference.
Which I don't think Maryland should be in the Big 10. That's that East Coast team that they just threw in at the end. There's always teams like that. The Big 10 is now, I think it's 14 teams. So it's not really Big 10 anymore.
Not Big 10.
But it's still really exciting to see them in there, and I feel like going forward, it's going to be kind of a Big Ten heavy year this year, because I always think the Big Ten shows up the most in the tournament. They just had the Big Ten ACC tournament, or preseason. They play each other. I forget what they call it, but I didn't see this ending stats on that. But I feel like it's got to be pretty good for the Big Ten this year, considering how good they look right now.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this year of basketball. My honorable mention has to be Kansas. I think we really came back from those allegations, and I mean, we were talking about it earlier, and
yeah, and that makes us a surprise team, because we didn't even know if we'd be here.
Exactly. We didn't know if we were going to be good, if we were going to be here, but I think we've got a really strong team this year. We've got a lot of really good players and everything.
Yeah,
so.
without a doubt. We've been fighting. I mean, lots of, first off, the allegations, then we've got, our lovely late night performance. It's been a little bit of everything, where the second that Bill Self walked out in that promo video with his gold chains and his Adidas shirt, we knew that it was going to be a good year.
Everything's going to be
yeah,
okay.
It was like, okay, we'll be fine. We're facing these allegations head on. So yeah, I'm pretty confident in Kansas for sure. It's hard not to be. And like I said, Big 12 doesn't look very good, so it looks like our conference to win. Knock on wood. Yeah,
we're going for that natty,
because
though.
we're both sophomores, and so
Yes.
we show up after 14 consecutive years of Big 12 championships, and then we lose. So I think it might be us.
It's pretty discouraging.
Yeah.
It's our class.
No, there is a decent chance it's our class.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about football.
Have a nice day. You too. Have a great day. Thanks. You too.
Make someone's day. Pay it forward.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Well, we're back, and the college football playoff is set with LSU set to face off against Oklahoma, while Ohio State is set to face off against Clemson. Riley, who are you picking?
Okay, I have to go with Clemson. They were preseason number 1. They are defending champions. They haven't lost a single game, and now they're ranked number 3. So that doesn't make sense. But to me, you can't argue with that track record. They've been there before. They did lose a lot of key players, because they do every year, just because everyone goes to the NFL. They're a farm system for the NFL. But this year, their defense has looked really good. Trevor Lawrence, their quarterback, he was shaky. He was considered a Heisman favorite, and then he wasn't playing like a Heisman favorite. They don't need a Heisman quarterback when they need a quality quarterback, and he is exactly that. And then they have a great defense to back him up. So I'm going with Clemson. They've been there before. They look good this year, and they're back where they should be.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against Clemson. Obviously, they have gone undefeated after winning the national championship, but I'm going to have to go with LSU. They've just looked thoroughly dominant all year. They have perhaps the most impressive wins against Georgia and Alabama, and they've got Joe Burrow at quarterback, who's probably going to win the Heisman. They've been scoring 47.8 points per game, which is just absurd, and they have 5 wins over top 10 teams this year, which is tied for the most in the AP poll era. So I think that it's really hard to pick against LSU right now.
Yeah, and I definitely see where you're coming from, and it's because also like you said, they had such a good hard schedule this year. Meanwhile, Clemson, the reason they moved to 3 is because they're kind of an unproven team. Unproven, I say, as defending champions because they are playing in the ACC. So, I mean, how I can back them up is the most number of points that they've let up this year is 20 points. And that was to a scare against UNC, where they only won that game by 1 point. But I think those scares, how I was talking about it with Emma when we were talking about Maryland basketball, it can be kind of good for your season. You realize, if Clemson lost that game, I don't think they'd be in the playoff, because when you're in an easy schedule, 1 loss and you're gone. I mean, So I can see that being a wake-up call for them. Then since then, they've been blowing out teams. They look great in the ACC championship. They did play a ranked team. They beat them 62-17, so that's something. But compared to LSU versus Georgia, that was a good game this weekend.
Yeah, I think Clemson, there's no doubt that they earned that spot. And I know that people were talking about their weak schedule, but when you go undefeated, there was really no question that they were going to make it. And I think this is really the first year in the playoff where you have 4 pretty obvious teams to make it. There weren't really any other one-loss teams that earned a spot.
Or any of the UCFs coming in undefeated and making a case for themselves. But no, I agree with that. How do you feel about Ohio State dropping from 1 to 2?
I think Ohio State definitely played well enough to earn that number 1 spot. I think it was really a coin toss between the two, between LSU and Ohio State. Ohio State's been unreal this year. They've been just blowing out teams every week. They have 2 wins against Wisconsin, which is a really high-quality team. They're going to be playing in the Rose Bowl, but you can't take it away from LSU and the way that they've played.
Yeah, and I got to think that the only reason that Ohio State dropped is because Wisconsin played with them for the first 3 quarters of that game, where we hadn't seen that, where it didn't look like Georgia played with LSU for any of that game, really. And same with, you could argue, for Clemson. Granted, Clemson's ranked behind them. But it was really exciting to see how Wisconsin could play with them, but I think because at the end of the game, it was all Ohio State. I was watching that game, and it turned in, I was cheering for Wisconsin just because I was hoping for an upset. And then it entirely, Ohio State, it's like they flipped a switch and decided, let's just take over. And when they did, they absolutely took over. Their blocking was incredible. They could run. It felt like they were rushing for 8 yards every time. Like, it was a joke compared to, in Wisconsin, like you said, they're a great football team. So that Clemson, I think that's going to be the one to watch when it's going forward. Because how do you feel about LSU versus Oklahoma?
Well, I think that Oklahoma is really being underrated right now. I feel like nobody's talking about them. And Jalen Hurts, he's had a great year. There's no denying that. But I don't know if the Oklahoma defense will be able to do anything against LSU.
Yeah, they've never been a defensive-heavy team. It's just purely offense. And that was an exciting Big 12 championship. That was the best of the conference championships. Overtime, we got Baylor, too. That was a fun one. That was my favorite to watch. But I definitely feel like who do you think, so you're saying LSU is going to take it all. Do you think it's going to be LSU versus Clemson, LSU versus Ohio State?
That's a tough one. I would probably say Ohio State. But I do think that Clemson's going to put up a good fight in that one. I just don't think – I think that Ohio State's just a more well-rounded team. You got Chase Young on defense. Justin Fields has had a great year on offense, and they have Dobbins at running back. So there's really there aren't too many weak spots on that Ohio State team.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, only time will tell on that. So I'm really looking forward to see – I mean, this is our last show before, so we'll be able to talk about college playoff after our winter break. But yeah, so then I think you're saying we'll be saying LSU. I think we'll be saying Clemson, but like I said, only time will tell. All right, we're going to cut to commercial. We'll be right back with who would you best build a franchise around as a quarterback?
For students searching for a way to stay active in an outdoorsy way, the City of Lawrence has bike trails running in every direction, and with the new bike share program, we can stay in shape as we tour the sights of our beautiful city. Clinton Lake is only a short 30-minute bike ride away from Daisy Hill and has the most incredible sunset location in all of Lawrence. Walking campus may give you the KU calves, but biking can give you the KU thighs. Bike Lawrence today.
All right, and we're back, and so Marie and I are going to be discussing who we would build our franchise around at the quarterback position. Now, I have to go with Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's hard to pick against him right now. I think he's the front runner in the MVP poll. And you know how every single time a new quarterback comes in the league who's mobile, they're like, oh, it's the quarterback of the future.
Right,
like, we've seen it with, Michael Vick, then we got RG3, like going all the way back every single time. And usually they're Heisman winners, I will say. True. And I think Lamar Jackson is the first one to actually start to define it. Where, I mean, look at him. He runs better than most running backs. He's top 10 in the league in rushing yards, and he's top 5 in the league in passing.
He's top on his team in rushing yards, too.
Over Mark Ingram, too. And they've got the Heisman formation, which is really fun. But I have to go with Lamar Jackson because it's the kind of cheesy saying like the quarterback of the future is right now, where if you look around the league, everyone, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and I think Lamar Jackson is the best of those quarterbacks.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, I talked about him last week because we were talking about who the most dominant team in the NFL was, and I obviously said the Ravens because you can't overlook Lamar Jackson in any aspect. I mean, he's just a phenomenal quarterback in all aspects.
And no one saw that coming, too. Everyone, remember when they said he was a running back? And then
not
he's
bad
got
for
a
running
couple.
back,
Yeah,
yeah.
not bad for a running back. Yeah, exactly.
So my pick is actually Kyler Murray, and I'll start by saying that I see a lot of Lamar Jackson in Kyler Murray. Should I say Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson? I don't know. But I think the way that the Ravens have reworked their offense to work around Lamar Jackson, we're going to see something similar with Kyler Murray becoming a franchise quarterback. And I'll be very candid right off the bat, and you guys all probably know this. I was not happy at all that the Cardinals wasted, or so I thought, a first overall pick on a quarterback that or on a position that we'd use a top 10 pick on the year before, and Josh Rosen. And I actually liked Josh Rosen, and I was upset that we'd inevitably be trading him away after drafting Murray. He just went from one worst team in the league to the next one, so that poor kid. And week 3 of the show, I said I thought Kyler Murray should have stuck with baseball as opposed to football, but I remember saying that I hoped he proved me wrong, and I think to an extent he has. Right now he's resting pretty perfectly in the middle of the pack. He's 15th overall in quarterback rating, 15th overall in passing yards. But like I said, I see a lot of potential in him. And if you look at Lamar Jackson, I know I'm comparing the two. Last season was his really guinea pig season for Greg Roman, who was promoted to offensive coordinator in the offseason to really look at Lamar Jackson and his unique style of play and see what worked for him, what didn't, and they've obviously reworked their offense to completely revolve around him. And with Cliff Kingsbury head coaching the Cardinals now, and we don't have an offensive coordinator, so he's calling the shots. I think
he's he's calling them on offense.
We don't have an offensive coordinator. Cliff Kingsbury's doing it, and I think he's done a really great job. This is again a good year for Kyler Murray to sort of make all those rookie mistakes. And Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, sort of the quarterback whisperer. Like he's worked with so many notable quarterbacks: Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, obviously most notably Patrick Mahomes. And I think he's going to do a great job with Kyler Murray. I think the Cardinals, other than an offensive line, have all of the pieces for a great offense. You know, Chase Edmonds is a star running back, going to be, I think. Christian Kirk, phenomenal wide receiver, gets better and better and better. And I don't know, I would 100% build a franchise around Kyler Murray, and that hopefully I'm right in saying this by next year and that he is playing as well as I expect him to. But I don't know. I would. I think he's awesome, and I think he has a lot of potential.
Yeah, and I think with Lamar Jackson, I mean, comparing the two is pretty easy. I think Kyler Murray is a better pocket passer than Lamar Jackson is. Lamar Jackson is a better rusher to me than Kyler Murray, which, I mean, I can't imagine going up on defense. Even like the read option, pretty relatively new. I feel like Cam Newton kind of made that a huge play in the NFL. But Lamar Jackson, he's a significantly better runner than Cam Newton. If you're going up against someone who can throw like Lamar Jackson and run like him, I don't think you really stand a chance. I mean, when he won the Heisman, he ran away with it, quite literally, too. That was one of the most exciting football seasons I've ever seen. And, I mean, Kyler Murray had a very similar college football season with his Heisman year. But I feel like it's the Ravens as a team that are going to make Lamar Jackson look even better, where you've got Kyler Murray's offensive line is non-existent.
Right.
Lamar Jackson has a great offensive line, a great running back, decent receiving core, and a really good defense. So I think that in all will make him more ready to go, or will make him the better quarterback to build around.
Right, and I think, like you just said, the Ravens have all the pieces of a great football team, and that's why they are a great football team.
Yeah.
The Cardinals are still missing some really key things, and I think most obviously is an offensive line. And so I think we're not going to be getting really high in the draft. We'll be getting some decent draft picks because we'll be picking closer to the beginning. So hopefully we can just get some good offensive linemen. And I don't know, I think Kyler Murray, quarterback of the future, I think he's definitely the quarterback for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I can see the two of them competing for MVP for quite a while.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to hop to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with you.
There's a parenting alert this morning about the danger of teens vaping.
A huge surge of high schoolers using e-cigarettes or vaping.
The FDA warning about liquid nicotine used in e-cigarettes.
Vaping is a highly addictive and dangerous trend that has become very popular amongst young adults. Most e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is highly addictive and can harm adolescent brain development, which continues into the early to mid-20s. This bad habit must be broken now, before it is too late.
Well, before we go, I want to thank all of our hosts for a great semester. This is our last show of the semester. So, Emma, how do you feel about the show so far?
I think it's really fun. I think we all we get along really great. We have a grand old time over here at TakeaSide, but I'm looking forward to next semester.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that started as a class requirement for a Journalism 210 class. It turned into a lot more, which I really like. All of us are coming back next semester. Like, I think the community is great. It's fun. It gives you on-air time, which not a lot of shows do. I think it really, I love the whole thing. It's really been a fun thing to partake in.
Yeah, I've loved it, and I didn't even think that at the beginning of the semester, the only reason I joined the show was because it was the only one that worked with my schedule, and I ended up loving it. And I've always loved sports, so this was kind of just perfect for me, and obviously we're all friends now, and it's been really awesome, and I don't know, I've had a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to next semester.
Yeah, we all have to thank Jacob as well,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
for putting
sure.
this whole
Thank you,
thing together.
Jacob.
And it's definitely been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, awesome, and be sure to keep posting those debates and arguments on sided.co and tag us on Twitter at TakeaSideKU. And that's all the time we have for today. So thank you, and we'll see you next semester.